It would have been an irresponsible self-indulgence for them to have pretended to make things fair. If there's anything worse than unfairness, it is make-believe fairness.
And white men in church wouldn't say good morning to me. They wouldn't look me in the eye.
Ruslan.
I wanted to show you guys this just because it came across my feed. This is a bit different than most of the stuff I covered, but I found it very compelling, and I found it interesting that it was older. Thomas Sowell, The Thief of Human Potential. This is from 1999. He gave this speech. The Quest of Cosmic Justice.
I guess the first thing to do is to define what cosmic justice is as distinguished from whatever other kind of justice we may be familiar with. Traditional justice, I guess we can summarize, at least in the American tradition, as applying the same rules and the same standards to everybody. Cosmic justice is very different. It means equalizing the prospects of everybody. And those two things are not only different in concept, they are wholly incompatible with one another. If you apply the same rules and standards to everybody in baseball, Mark McGwire is going to hit 70 home runs, and there are going to be other people who will spend an entire career without hitting 70 home runs, including people in the Hall of Fame like Luke Appling, who twice won the batting championship. So if you want the one thing or the other, you can go for it. But the one thing you cannot do is pursue the two things simultaneously. Or rather, you cannot successfully do that. The Supreme Court has been pursuing the two things simultaneously for quite a while, leading to a lot of 5-4 decisions and inconsistent decisions. The requirements for the two kinds of justice are very different. The requirement for treating everyone the same is very simple. It's mass-produced. The requirements for cosmic justice must be handmade and tailored to each individual case. It's much more complex, and it requires a much larger amount of government power. Some third party must intervene to determine whether the outcomes are right, whether the prospects are right. The very same words have entirely different meanings within these two frameworks. In fact, as I mentioned in the preface to the book, what really set me off a few years ago to finish it up was a discussion with one of my colleagues at Stanford University, who shall be anonymous in deference to the libel laws, who talked about a level playing field. And it became painfully clear that what he called a level playing field is what I would have called a tilted playing field. Tilted so as to produce the results that he wanted. When we talk about a fair fight, that means very different things within these two frameworks. A fair fight by traditional standards means that both boxers observe the Marquis of Queensberry rules, and the fight is fair whether it ends up in a draw or a one-sided beating. From the other point of view, from the cosmic perspective, it's fair only when the two fighters enter the ring with the same prospects of winning. John Rawls has sort of summarized and epitomized these two differences. He distinguishes what he calls fair equality of opportunity from merely formal equality of opportunity. Traditional justice or fairness by Rawls' standards means simply that people aren't judged by the same rules. But genuine equality of opportunity, as he calls it, cannot be achieved by this method. Instead, he says, undeserved inequalities call for redress. And obviously, someone must have power in order to do that redress. Now, what I call cosmic justice has been called by some people social justice. But I think they're unduly modest, because they're trying to correct not only the inequities that they see in society, they're trying to correct the oversights of God or the defects of the cosmos. When some people are born with physical or mental handicaps, they want to counterbalance that. And of course, that's not always caused by society. So that when Rawls says that undeserved inequalities, he includes all sorts of things, and that opens up a very large area for others. You can find this perspective on justice, the Rawlsian perspective, in many places, from the street corner community activist right up to the chambers of the Supreme Court. For example, a few years ago, an admissions director at Stanford University wrote a book in which she pointed out that during all her years as an admissions director, she had never required students to submit achievement tests, because some of those students, she said, through no fault of their own, attended schools where they could not have acquired the skills necessary to do well on such tests. So she's trying to redress the inequalities, and therefore she would simply not require such tests. The Educational Testing Service is currently engaging in a renorming of test scores to take into account the social backgrounds and handicaps of the students, so that the score will then, again, redress pre-existing inequalities rather than applying the same standards to everybody. Whenever I hear the notions of fairness in education, I think back to my own education. And I think, thank God, my teachers were unfair to me when I was a kid growing up in Harlem. One of these teachers was a lady named Miss Simon, who belonged to what might be called the General Patton School of Education. I cannot even imagine that Miss Simon gave a moment's thought to my self-esteem. Every word that we misspelled in her class had to be written 50 times, not in class, but as part of our homework. And there was always plenty of other homework from her and other teachers. And so you misspell 4 or 5 words, and you had quite an evening ahead of you. Very little chance of listening to the Lone Ranger. Now, was this fair in Rawlsian terms? And the answer is no. Like many of the children in Harlem at that time, I came from a home where nobody had gone beyond elementary school. I still remember what a big fuss was made when I was promoted to the 7th grade because I'd gone further than anyone else. In later years, when I graduated from Harvard, there was no such fuss. They expected me to. But fairness was never an...
Someone said this is how you see stories in your head, Tim.
Yes.
The way this is
It's very true. That's very true.
It's beautiful.
Yes, yep. This
There was
is so
nothing
true.
Miss Simon or anybody else could do about the fact that we came from homes where we did not have books and magazines, and we were not as familiar with those words as people from other neighborhoods might have been. So that was never an option. Nothing that schools could have done would have changed that. It would have been an irresponsible self-indulgence for them to have pretended to make things fair. If there's anything worse than unfairness, it is make-believe fairness. They could, like the College Board apparently is trying to do, pretended that we knew more than we did. And that would have made them feel good. It would not have done much for us. Instead, they forced us to meet standards that were a little harder for us to meet than they were for some other kids, but far more necessary for us to meet, because that was the only way out of poverty. Many years later, I happened to run into one of the other kids from Harlem who went to that same school at the same time. And by now, he was a psychiatrist. He owned a home in the Napa Valley and property out there. In fact, now he's retired, living overseas with servants, while yours truly is still trying to make a living. But as we reminisced about things that had happened in the old days and what had happened in between, one of the things he mentioned was that over the years, his various secretaries had commented on the fact that he seldom misspelled a word. I told him that my secretaries had made that very same observation, and that if they knew Miss Simon, there would be no mystery as to why we did not misspell words. Now, it so happens I became a high school dropout. But what I was taught before I dropped out was enough for me to score higher on the verbal SAT than the average Harvard student, which may have had something to do with my being admitted to Harvard in an era before affirmative action was even thought of.
So that's a quick little introduction to Thomas Sowell. So it's this idea of equal opportunity, right? And everyone having access to equal opportunity, though we don't all have the same upbringing, the same access to education, versus what he's talking about, cosmic justice. Now, I have a passage that I think actually kind of glues all of this together, but I kind of wanted just to get your guys' impression of this and where a lot of this stuff kind of seems to be going. And it's like they're literally changing the grading expectations of schools. You know what I mean? What do you guys make of all this?
As with everything, I bring it through the filter of my own experience, right? And I do not, for some reason in our society, and maybe it's because of all the civil rights leaders that we've had to have throughout the centuries, there's a presupposition that a black man or black woman speaks for all black people, and that's simply not true. So that's the only disclaimer I'll give, that that I'm speaking for myself.
Yes. Hey, you want to see something crazy? 67% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed. Do me a quick favor, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date on all the videos here on the Blessed God Studios channel.
So I have a high school education. I was a C student. My grade point average was barely 2.0. I was incredibly bored with school and missed first period so many times because I didn't even start walking to school until Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was done. My junior year of high school, that I was transferred to an alternative school. Some gang stuff broke out where we were, and providentially, between my junior and senior year, we were moved to Apple Valley, California, 66 miles away from Balinda, California. So we're up in Apple Valley. I thought because, you know, we transitioned schools during the summer, I could get back into a public school. Psych, because I ended my grade 11 year in a alternative school. I had to join 12th grade in an alternative school. I enroll the first day, and I'm told you have this many units to finish and get your high school diploma. Let's say it was 52 units, 52 credits, whatever they used to call them. They said, here is your work. Here you work at your pace. And when you're done with all these assignments, you graduate and get your diploma. Not a GED, a diploma. I graduated in 90 days.
Wow. Wow. You just locked in.
What I hated about school is that it took 9 months to get out of this freaking grade. I've never been good with boundaries. I've always been an entrepreneur. I need space. Let me figure it out.
Yeah, it's good.
So they removed the boundaries, and in 90 days I had a diploma.
Yeah.
I knew when I graduated high school, I'm not going to college, but I'm going to make some money.
Yep.
Right.
I didn't know what I was going to do,
Yeah.
but I was going to figure it out, and it was going to be legal.
Yeah.
And so I worked for animal control. I did this, that, and the other. And then I moved to Texas, and then I worked for CarMax, and then I worked for Benny Hinn Ministries, and I worked for TD Drake's Ministries, and I worked for churches, and it was all good. And then I realized, like, ooh, I know how to talk, and I can put a valuation to my talking, and then I can go make some money off this talking. And so I'm going to figure out some more stuff, and then I'm going to have my own business one day.
Yeah.
It was nonprofit.
Yeah.
And so we did that. We ran a church, and it was good, and the elders set my salary, and I liked it, and it was still restrictive. I'm like, how long? And do I have to do this for 40 years? And if so, is it going to be books? Lord, how's it going to happen? And I never thought I was going to pastor a church for 30 years, but I didn't think it would be less than 10. I did it for 7, and now I've stepped out into what I'm doing now. I've made more money in the last 9 months than I've made in my life. And I've got some stuff dialed in now, and I'm about to figure out some other stuff, right? I'm paying off my house this month.
Come on.
Right?
Yeah.
I bought it for $540,000 6 years ago, and it's getting paid off this month.
Come on.
And so I'll be debt free, and then we're gonna go buy another property, and then that property is gonna do something for me, and I'm gonna flip some stuff. And so I've given myself like a 5-year window to figure some other stuff out. But I always knew I was gonna be here. I didn't know how.
Yes.
But I knew I was gonna be here. I am a black man in this country. I was considered at risk by the 3rd grade because my older brother, who was 10 years older than me, had founded a gang. So they thought I was on the same
Trajectory.
path and the same trajectory. Pat McCormick, who is an Olympic gold medalist diver from years and years ago, had a thing called Pat's Kids. I was in these at-risk programs, all this kind of stuff. I was in a gang for 7 days. I had the choice to do all the stuff my brother did and all my homies from the hood that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Something in me, pre-Jesus, devotion to God, was like, yeah, nah, I'm, you know, smoking blunts don't seem like the thing. Selling crack don't seem like the thing. I'm really risk adverse. I'm going to figure something out.
Come on.
And so I have. And so where I am, okay, I know for a fact that based on my skin color and what America did to black people in this country, when the shot went bang, I was not at the starting line. I was freaking 40 meters back, which means I had to run a little faster, work harder, and accept that this was the cards I had been dealt.
Yep.
Now, once I've accepted that, I now have a choice of how I'm going to navigate life.
That's good.
Am I going to bemoan that I'm 40 meters back and I wasn't given the same opportunities as this people? Should I have known about should my family, should 3 generations ago of my family have known about wealth management, trust, equity, and real estate 3 generations ago?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Did we? No, we didn't. Have I caught up? Yes, I have. So what are we talking about?
Yeah.
What I don't want is a small fence made for me, and I only have to read 3 books, but White Johnny has to read 9.
Yeah.
Because little black Timmy can't handle the other 8 books.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. If you only give me 1 book and you give White Johnny 9, he's still gonna have more knowledge than me. Because he had 9 books and only had 1.
Oh, I see what
I
you're
don't
saying.
know what he knows.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So now we have the same diploma, but I don't know what he knows. Which means he's still gonna have an advantage.
Yeah.
So, okay, handicap me.
Yep.
Fine.
Yep.
I will catch you.
I love this, yo.
I will
Talk your talk, Tim.
Dude, I will freaking catch you.
Talk your
No
talk.
one can outwork me. I told a group of leaders last week that I am not the best preacher out there.
Yeah.
You know what happened?
Yeah.
All of my peers fail. I ain't the best one out there.
Yep.
It's just that in the particular thing that I was doing,
Yeah.
all the guys that were better than me fail.
Yep. Yeah. Wow.
And they still needed somebody to come speak, and I just happened to still be around.
Wow.
I will catch you on work ethic. I
Wow.
will catch you on discipline.
Yeah.
I will catch you on commitment. I will catch you because I will take my tail home.
Come on.
There is no illegality. There is no immorality. My name is good.
Yes.
A good name is better than rubies and treasure. So when I talk as a black man, in my experience in this country, I have dealt with overt racism. I worked for Josh McDowell for 2 years on his Bold Truth tour. We went through the heartland of America, and white men in church wouldn't say good morning to me.
Wow.
They wouldn't look me in the eye.
Wow.
When we got done with all of the tours that we did and we took pictures, there were white young men and women that couldn't take pictures with me in it in Billings, Montana, because they were afraid their dad would see it.
That's crazy.
So I know my black skin is not welcome everywhere in this country.
This is like recent. Like this isn't that long ago. This is nuts.
I'm not talking about what Martin Luther King went through.
Yeah, man.
I'm talking about in 2002, 2003, 2004, I'm in a Leanne Rimes converted tour bus that Josh McDowell bought from that country singer, and we going through Billings, Montana, and Fargo, North Dakota, and we're going to South Dakota, and we're going to Tupelo, Mississippi, and we are going to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. We're going to Jackson, Mississippi. There's a Confederate flag at the church hanging off their Capitol building, and the black dudes at this church wouldn't look me in the eye.
Wow.
Like,
The black dudes wouldn't look you in the eye.
it was like, Master, is you's a freed Negro? Do you got papers?
Jeez.
How'd you get those papers? It was basically like modern day Django.
Yeah.
Josh McDowell was Christoph.
Yeah.
If y'all have seen Django,
The dentist.
yeah, the dentist, right? And I was every time we did a tour, after I introduced Josh would come out, kiss me on the cheek, and then start his thing. That was his big F you to all the guys that wouldn't talk to me that day. Is he kissed me on the cheek and then start his thing.
Shout out Josh McDowell.
Yeah, Josh's salute. And he always apologized. Do you know somebody on that bus had to apologize after every stop we made in the South?
Wow.
That's how bad it was.
This is 20 years ago. This isn't even that long ago.
No, this is 20 years ago. I remember, I'll give you one story. We were in Laramie, Wyoming. Josh had to speak at this event, really nice hall. And the dressing room, they had, the hall was in the center, and then they had the women's restroom on this side and the men's restroom on this side. Josh's dressing room was here. So it's right before he has to go out. He has to pee real quick. So Benjamin, I'll never forget this, Benji Zimmerman, who's like a tall Viking guy. He didn't have a blonde beard. It was yellow. He was a Nordic god, okay? He had a yellow beard. He was a Viking. He had a yellow beard and piercing blue eyes. So Benji's standing on one side of the door. I'm standing on the other. Josh is in the restroom. It's a women's restroom. We didn't want him to go all the way around and come all the way back, whatever. So this woman comes around the corner. She sees both of us, and hey, and she's about to walk in the restroom, and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, you can't go in there right now. Our speaker is just freshening up. He'll be out in a minute." And she did like this to me, looked me up and down, and she said, "Oh, I thought you were here to clean it."
That's
and
crazy.
Benji turned beet red with anger, and I gave him the look like, "Hey, bro, don't even worry about it." Bro, overt racism.
Overt,
We're not talking about like, I didn't think she liked me. No, she looked at me and said, "I thought you were to help." She didn't say that to Benji.
Yep.
She looked me up and down.
Yeah.
Okay. So I could give you those type of things ad nauseum. I could give it to you in church. I preached at a white church one time, and in the green room, in between services, they had multiple services on the Sunday morning. The dude came back there and I asked, "How did I do?" And he goes, "I want you to give me less." Like, he named a white pastor and said, "Give me more TD Jakes." I'm like, so you just think I'm a coon?
Yeah.
That came in here to tap dance for you.
Sheesh.
Y'all got me completely twisted.
Yeah.
I've navigated racism in my life.
Yep.
It's not going to be an excuse
Yep.
for why I'm not going to make this money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make this paper, son.
Yeah.
Like, you ain't going to stop me from making money.
Yeah.
You ain't going to stop me from being successful.
Yeah.
Did I have to start from 40 meters back? I absolutely did. Did I get my 40 acres and a mule? We absolutely didn't. And guess what? We still going to get this property anyway.
Come on.
I'm going to find a way to get it, fam.
Yep.
Because my ancestors' freaking DNA is on the inside of me, and we survived a boat ride.
Come on.
From Africa. And you mean to tell me I'm going to be mad because a white woman in Laramie, Wyoming
Right.
called me to help?
Right.
Please. Y'all got me twisted.
So from the video, was he alluding to we're getting soft on kids now?
Yeah. He again, this is over 20 years old. This is
Yeah.
99.
Yeah.
And all the test score stuff is happening now. They're trying to, they're saying, someone literally I'm not exaggerating. Someone literally came out recently and said that, saying 2 + 2 is like white supremacy.
Oh my God.
Like it's like a trope. Yeah. Like this was trending a few maybe 2 weeks ago, that like a lot of these standardized things that are just like absolutes, they're white supremacy, the racist, yada yada yada. And so so he was kind of Thomas Sowell was calling this stuff
Calling it out.
super early, and this idea of like let's instead of saying, okay, everybody's gonna run a race, we're all starting from different places. Instead, let's manipulate the race and make it. And that's kind of like the word equity versus equal opportunity. That's kind of like the difference there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so my take on this is simple. When we look at Matthew 25, we see the parable of the talents, right? Which we're all familiar with. In the parable of the talents, not everybody gets equal talents.
Cheat code,
Right?
fam.
Not everybody gets equal talents.
Hey, dog.
But check this out. The whole point of the parable, in my opinion, is it goes into caring for the least of these.
That's correct.
So we know that not everybody's going to get equal talents. Some are going to
Yeah.
have 5, some are going to have 3.
Yep.
And then, but what is the point? The point is, hey, you had abundance. And so cosmic justice, caring for the least of these, caring for the widow, caring for the orphan, caring for the people that are marginalized, should be an overflow of godly stewardship.
Absolutely.
So if I
Lord have
can
mercy.
change my
God.
family trajectory, then I could potentially help other people.
Oh my God.
Tim, you're talking about the inspiration, right? Like the inspiration of your story and what that means. But there's also the hands and feet of Jesus, right? Like there's property you're passing down that that your kids will now have. There's actual equity that's going to be passed down because of which, and the ability to care for people, like literally, like it's difficult to explain people how awesome it feels when you know your buddy is struggling financially and they don't know how they're gonna make rent, and you could pull up and slide $1,000 under the doormat to make sure they make rent, and they never know it was you.
Absolutely.
Like that kind of stuff is so cool.
Yeah.
And it flows. And so cosmic justice, yes, it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair. It's not equal in terms of outcome. But if we can be the hands and feet of Jesus, then we can help tip the scales.
That's right.
And say, as kingdom ambassadors.
That's right.
You see what I did there?
Yes, sir.
As kingdom ambassadors.
That's right.
We can be the hands and feet of Jesus.
That's right.
We can care for the least of these. We can care for the widow, for the orphan. And then that brings balance, not legislating math isn't math anymore. Hey, this clip is from our daily after party stream. If you enjoyed it, consider signing up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month, where you get access to the replays of our daily after party streams, as well as the uncut extended versions of our podcast, Discord access that's private, and a discount code for our merch store, only $5 a month. And ultimately, it's the best way to help us contextualize the gospel of Jesus using media, podcasting, and of course, YouTube. The link for that is in the description or in the pinned comment. The perks are amazing. You should get on there. It's only $5 a month. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.